everyone, I'm Joanna Penn from thecreativepenn.com, and today I'm here with Mark Lefebvre. Hi Mark.
Hey Joanna, how are you doing?
I'm good. So, just as an introduction, Mark is the Director of Self-Publishing and Author Relations at Kobo.com, as well as being an author and an editor. So Mark, why don't we start by you telling us a bit more about your writing and publishing background?
Okay, I've been a writer since I was 13. I think I fondly remember a summer when I was 13 years old. Discovered my mom's Underwood typewriter, and I spent the summer hammering out a really terrible Dungeons and Dragons inspired fantasy novel that hopefully will never ever be seen by anyone. I had been writing a long, long time. I ended up writing what I call it horror, but it's more like Twilight Zone fiction. That's how people have described it. They go, well, this isn't horror. This isn't some guy in a hockey mask running around stabbing people. This is creepy stuff that isn't exactly science fiction. It isn't exactly fantasy. It's just strange fiction. So I've been doing that for a long, long time, and that's what drew me to bookselling. I wanted to be close to the thing I was most passionate about, which was reading and writing. And so that's kind of how I ended up here. I have traditionally published. I have two books that came out with traditional publishers this year, another one coming out next year, and previously I'd had a book in 2006 from a traditional publisher. But I also self-published using print on demand. Back 2004 was when I took some of my previously published fiction, and I got tired of being able of telling people when they asked, well, where can I read your short stories that you've been publishing? And they would be printed in a small press horror magazine that would be in print for a month or a quarter or something like that, and it was only available in New Jersey, for example, limited circulation of 500 people or maybe 2,000. And so I'd say, well, you can't get it anywhere. So I got tired of that. So I set up an account with Lightning Source, and in 2004 launched a collection of previously published fiction called One Hand Screaming, and it was really just so that when people said, well, where can I get your stuff? Well, you can get it on any online bookstore, and then of course there were bookstores that carried it as well. And that kind of led me into digital and self-publishing, and of course, eventually led to where I am today at Kobo.
Now we're gonna talk a bit about Kobo right now because I'm well aware of Kobo. I'm sure some listeners are, but the publishing landscapes I think is quite confused at the moment. There's lots of different companies kind of springing up here and there. Can you explain, what Kobo is and how it fits into the publishing ecosystem?
Sure. So Kobo is an ebook seller. Kobo sells ebooks, and that's it. That's what they do. Kobo is about 3 years old. It was originally a company that was spun off Canada's largest print bookstore retailer, Chapters Indigo. And it was initially, I think in many ways, I'd been admiring the company from a distance for a long, long time. They were initially known as short covers. And the thought was, well, would people really, everyone has a cell phone and a smartphone and these concepts. Are they really going to want to, have a dedicated reader? So the concept was they're probably going to do short reads. We were looking at trends that were happening in Japan and things like that where people were reading on their phones and Twitter was new and this is new, exciting, short fiction or short pieces reads. As a writer, I had actually the most money I ever made as a writer was when I sold Twitter length fiction, $1 each, which is the most I've ever been paid per word, which is pretty exciting. It's really hard, let me tell you. So they had short covers, which they launched, which was really exciting. It was really fun. So Kobo initially, the plan with short covers / Kobo was you should read freely was the philosophy of the company. You, as a consumer, as a reader, should be able to read any book on any device at any time. You bought it, it's your choice. So they're really about that experience. So the first thing that Kobo had done was created a free app for every environment. PC, Macintosh, Android wasn't really out or popular then, so you had the iOS platform, you had the RIM, which was the BlackBerry, and so there were free apps for every device. And it wasn't until our customers demanded that we have a dedicated e-reader that we said, okay, you really want one. All right, we'll build you one. We didn't think you wanted to be locked into a single retailer, and Kobo uses an ePub standard, so you don't have to own a Kobo to read on Kobo, and you can also purchase, so long as the other retailer sells ePubs, industry standard, and so long as the publisher hasn't enacted really tight DRM,
Mm.
you can move that, buy it at Barnes and Noble, for example, and read it on your Kobo reader, or vice versa. So that's one of the things about Kobo. Now, Kobo is 3 years old now.
Mm.
Kobo was bought by the Japanese company Rakuten in
Mm.
January of this last year as a recognition that they wanted to expand into this market. And what that really, really gave Kobo was an opportunity to compete even further on the global scale. Kobo was not just available in Canada and North America. Kobo was um, available worldwide. We also had a move where we would partner with retailers in an existing market. So rather than go in and try to dominate and take over and do that sort of thing, Kobo moved in and the UK partnered with WH Smith.
Mm.
In Canada, partnered with obviously with Chapters Indigo because that was the company we were born from, and then in the U.S., unfortunately for Borders and for Kobo, is we partnered with Borders, and that didn't work out too well. But we're really, really excited. We just announced a partnership with the American Booksellers Association, the indie bookstores in the U.S. And I think it was yesterday there was a really cool thing on Changing Hands, which is a really respected independent bookstore, and Powell's, and there's some major independents that are now have the new Kobo readers
Mm.
in their stores, and now customers who want to support their local indie bookstore can support their local indie bookstore with Kobo because we have that partnership that still allows you to have that joy of having that bookshop in your local community that you can still support. And if you have a print book, you can go there and do a signing, and you can do those types of things that are all community based. So
Mm.
I think those are some of the things about Kobo that to me are very, very important.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just been a fantastic experience. We're a digital company, but we again a lot of what Kobo's about is partnering and
Mm.
finding business partners that we can work with, so we can really, really use each other's strengths to kind of work together.
Hmm. And I think as you talk there, especially about those independent bookstores, and certainly in the UK now, Kobo is in WH Smith's, and Amazon's now partnering with Waterstones, which is our main high street bookstore. And I wonder, and I feel like Kobo is almost, we have to acknowledge Amazon's like the front runner, but I feel like Kobo is,
I've heard
coming up behind. Do you feel like you are branding as kind of the anti-Amazon with this indie bookstore thing?
in a lot of ways, there are a lot of people who want to make sure that there's more than one game in town. I think a lot of people in the industry, I've been a bookseller for over 20 years, so a lot of people are nervous when there's one overwhelmingly powerful entity because I think it was Cory Doctorow who had said this about Google. When Google owns everything, he said nobody should have that kind of power, not even Santa Claus. Because you never know what
Mm.
could happen. They're nice today, but if they decide, and you've seen that with big companies, you've seen that where they push a button and none of Macmillan's titles are available anymore. Whoa, that's pretty powerful.
Mm.
To give any one entity that power is amazing. I always think it's important that customers, consumers, and authors have choice. So that's one of the things that I think is important. I wouldn't say anti-Amazon so much as embracing everyone.
Mm.
I'm the kind of guy, with booksellers. I live in Hamilton, Ontario, and I do my best to when I purchase books, I do my best to try and spread the love and buy from as many different places as possible because it's important to me that we have booksellers. It's important to me that we have publishers. It's important to me that we have authors, and I want to sort of spread my love and support in as many ways as possible. So I think it's important. I think it's important to have multiple players that can challenge each other and make sure
Mm.
that we're not just getting lazy and just resting on our laurels, but that we're constantly seeking to do better for our consumers, for our authors, for our business partners, etc.
Mm, no, I agree. And the other thing I think is slightly different with Kobo is you have a very global I mean, Amazon is going global slowly, but like, you're bought by Rakuten, that's an Asia-based company. I know you've gone into a lot of countries faster. What do you think sets you apart in that global space?
We call it Kobo Speed. There's a quote on the wall in our head office in Toronto, which is where we're still based, as our head office. Even though we have people around the world, you have to run a global company. For Mario Andretti, that if it doesn't seem if it seems like things are under control, you're not moving fast enough. Which is a very inspirational quote. It's right where the coffee machine in the morning where I get my coffee. So you know as you're getting your caffeine jolt, you're reminded, okay, let's get to work here. Um, it's really exciting. Kobo's available in over 200 countries, and one of the things that's important to me, particularly as a Canadian living beside the giant entity that south of the 49th parallel, um, is that there's more out there than just the U.S. market. That there are in the English speaking language alone, not to mention the other language, there is a plethora of readers and writers out there that we can work with, that we can support, that we can help, that we can bring these great ebooks to, and I think it's really really important. Kobo Writing Life was launched in July of 2012, and we already have, I think at last count, I think there's 90 authors from 91 countries are signed up, and publishing in 34 different languages. In recognition that it's important to allow authors and small publishers the ability to, express themselves and share their works beyond their own borders.
No, absolutely, and I really support that. I think that's awesome. I mean, you launched Writing Life. I think it's great. I think in terms of a platform, it's very easy to use. It's nicely designed. I think you've definitely benefited from, obviously, Amazon's clunky sort of start, and what you've got. And I think what sets you guys apart, and I'm going to mention it now, is that you pay authors in the currency for the global sale electronically, which is brilliant, because I get checks from Amazon in US dollars, which is a pain in the ass. So what is there anything else you want to say that Writing Life offers authors?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that because it was really important. I mean, we were printing checks to send to publishers around the world, and it got to a point because we had publishers globally. It wasn't just North America based. Is we would print a check and drop it in the mail, and for God's sakes, like how long would it take to get to the author? Whereas even if you look at the cost, just from a financial perspective, the cost of printing, and you run out of so many checks, you'd run out of paper, and you'd have to wait for the order to come from the supply company to get more checks, and then mail them, and you're waiting for all these things, and then you have postal strikes. So digital was great because the whole idea was, well, we want to pay people by a certain date, and the goal is to get it there, and one of the easiest ways is to put it in their bank account. So that was. I'm glad that you find that enjoyable. And again, why not be paid in the currency of your choice if it's available? Again, there's some challenges with the conversion because sometimes you'd rather not have it converted because we're using like the Bank of Canada rates and all these other weird things. But at least at the end of the day, money should flow from the consumer back to the author slash publisher as quickly as possible.
No, exactly, and I love that. So let's for people who are not on Writing Life, who maybe are just with Amazon at the moment or go through Smashwords, for example, let's talk about some of the good things about being on Kobo. So what books sell well on Kobo? Like, what are the best-selling genres?
I think so. The books that sell the best on Kobo are fiction, and if you break down fiction, I think when you look at the genres of romance, what you call, or what we like to cheekily call, more active romance, adult romance,
Erotica.
Erotica. More active romance just sounds like thrillers and mysteries. And science fiction and genres sell really well. So I mean, those tend to be the best-selling titles. There's been an amazing upsurge of, ironically, when you think about Kobo's beginnings, what journalists call long-form articles or short reads. So that's been a really wonderful opportunity for writers who've put in that extra work to actually get that work out there. So one of the things that I like about Kobo Writing Life, just to come back to it, the reason we launched Kobo Writing Life is again, based on demand from our authors, you could always work with Kobo as an author, but it was really, really hard. We basically, you had to have an IT department basically to do it really, really well.
Or
You had
go
to,
through Smashwords.
or go through Smashwords. And I think one of the differences, and I love Smashwords, I use Smashwords as an author. I use pretty much every platform available to me as an author. Smashwords is one great way that authors who, for example, don't live in the U.S. could get into the Barnes& and Noble ecosystem, right?
Mm.
So that was one of the things that we paid attention to in writing, launching Writing Life, is we want to make it available to as many people as possible, not say, well, no, you have to have a U.S. bank account to play with us. I think one of the other things that's important is sometimes authors like to experiment and try things out, and so it's Thanksgiving weekend or the Thanksgiving month or whatever you want to call it in the U.S. right now, and that's a major retail time, and it's sales and things like that. So authors are often experimenting and saying, well, I'm gonna change the price of my book to 99 cents for what they call Black Friday or Cyber Monday in North America, and you can do that if you have a direct relationship with the retailer relatively easy, because you can log in, you can make your change, and usually the change happens within a few hours, unless there's a major traffic jam of millions of updates that came in at the exact same time. But for the most part, they happen within hours. Unfortunately, with using an aggregator, and it's not any slag against aggregators for an amazing service, once in, distributed to everywhere, great. That works really, really well for a lot of authors. But if you want to do some experimentation, when I make a change, for example, in Smashwords, it takes weeks for that to get down to Kobo and Apple and all the places that I distribute to.
So I wanted to ask you specifically, so for those of us on Amazon, there are so many things now that it's very well known how you can do marketing on Amazon. We talk about it a lot in the author blogs, we're always thinking of new things. Now, pricing is obviously one thing, so we won't talk about that. But what are some of the other ways that authors can, help their books sell better on Kobo?
It's interesting because this is important to me. I mean, I sell my own books on all the platforms as well, and obviously everybody's heard of the world's longest river. It's a major force in the publishing industry because they've been there for a long time and they've done a really good job. But it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a lot of ways. I found sometimes in working, because I work with authors, that's the beautiful joy of my job, is as a writer myself, I get to work with authors all day. Really, like, what a cool perk. So I think one of the things is, well, all my sales are at Amazon. Well, I went to your website and the only place you're linking to is there. So why would you expect to sell anywhere else if you don't link there? As a writer myself, I have no idea where authors are going to buy my books, and there's certain things that people do to game the system on launch day. I want everyone to go and buy from here so I can chart the bestseller list and all the other things that used to be easy to do in art, because the market is so saturated with everyone doing that, so it's not as easy. Algorithms continually change. I think it's Ed Robertson who's done an amazing job of understanding and sharing algorithms with the self-pub author community, which you've got to love the sharing that happens in this community. I'm just one author in an ecosystem of how many million titles. It's no different than the struggle that most authors face is discoverability, and so I think one of the things that we're doing, and we're trying to work with authors, and that's why we built Writing Life. That's why we created the dashboard that we did, is we went out to the author community and listened and said, what do you really, really need to drive this as a creative person, as a business person? What do you need to run this business? Because that's really what you are. As a writer, you're a business partner. We only succeed if you succeed. We only succeed if you sell a lot of stuff. Right? So we both win if that happens. So that's where the dashboard came from. The dashboard, for example, what do authors want when they come to a self-publishing platform? They log in and they want to see, how am I doing? Where are my books selling? Yeah. We've done a pretty decent job of that. I'm really, really excited. Within the next week, we will be launching the next iteration. We have 6-week cycles of development, and so we have these different upgrades that we're continually planning based on feedback from our authors. And I'm really excited about the new version of the dashboard because, I mean, if you like it now, you're going to love it next. You know, one of the features people love about the Kobo Writing Life dashboard is the map of the world.
Yeah,
So
that is very cool. That is cool. But I guess there you haven't really said anything specific that people can do to sell more on Kobo, because in terms of how my books sell on Amazon, most of the people who buy my books don't find them through my website. So whether I put a link, and I have a link to Kobo from my website, but they don't find my books from me, they find it through the store. So is there anything on Kobo specifically we can do to sell more there?
yeah, so I mean, one of the things is we're constantly working on search, and based on feedback from Kobo Writing Life authors, and this has been really, really helpful. Feedback that they've been providing us, I've been providing to the web team, who are constantly tweaking and refining search. And search is obviously one of the ways that people are going to find it, but part of it is the serendipity of lists and merchandising lists and things like that. And we've just recently relaunched the way that we merchandise. And one of the things I love about that is it offers more opportunity for lists and like items. So a lot of it's based on history. So so for example, if you bought a book by Mark Leslie, which is the name I write under, and I also bought a book by Joanna Penn, that helps with the algorithms that if I'm looking at a book by Joanna Penn, you may also like, because a certain number of writers who bought from both of these authors will are likely to like each other's books. So there's those types of algorithms that are already there, and they just get better with the market. I think one of the strengths for Kobo and one of the challenges for Kobo is we do take into account where you're from. So if you're looking at how you rank in the UK, it's going to be different than Canada. So one of the things we're working at doing is helping show authors. They may be the #1 bestseller in Australia. But if they're not in Australia, they can't see that. And one of the things authors love to know is how they're doing. They may see on the map when they log into Writing Life that, oh, I'm doing really well in Australia, but when I go to the website, all I see is my stats for the IP address where I'm from. I can't see how I'm ranking in that other country. So we're trying to find out ways, because you want to take advantage of that. If you're climbing the ranks, so we have plans to build in abilities for you to see the geo-territorial, so you can see in all the different regions that we're in how you're doing there, because you want to take advantage of that. If you're suddenly selling really, really well in one area, you want to ride that. So we want to give authors the ability to do that. Self-publishing, the stigma about self-publishing has dramatically changed in the 5 years alone. And when I self-published in 2004, I would not publicly broadcast that was a self-published title. You did everything you could to hide that fact. It was like admitting to an embarrassing habit that you had. But now it's okay, it's acceptable, and yet there's still quite a stigma. So one of the things we purposely did is we said we don't want to create a ghetto. There's some great opportunities to say find your next great indie read, and we do have lists and merchandising lists where we try and drive people into that area. But at the end of the day, I think it's really, really important that that you're fighting alongside the major players. If you are a publishing professional and you're putting out the best quality product that you can, there's no reason why you can't compete with anyone out there.
No, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. And it's good. So it sounds like things are being developed and things are changing, and you're going to keep releasing new things to kind of help people. Fantastic. And I think everyone wants Kobo to succeed. Like you said, we want an ecosystem for authors and for readers, and a company that will also rival Amazon in order to make this a more competitive environment. So we're all happy with that, and I'll put the email up so people can experiment and email you. So we run out of time, but I did quickly want to ask you about print, because we talked all about ebooks, but I see that you're involved with the Espresso Book Machine, which I went and visited one in Australia like 3 years ago, and just explain what it is and what you see for it potentially.
Oh, sure. I bought an espresso book machine at the university bookstore I worked at in 2008. I think we were the seventh bookstore in the world to have an espresso book machine. It was very, very exciting. We were one of the first in Canada. And what an espresso book machine is it's a machine that sits on the floor. It's basically a really, really expensive printer, a Xerox printer, attached to a binding device and a trimming device. And it's run through a specific software run by On Demand Books, which is a company from New York. And what it does is it really makes a book from a digital file, or from digital files, I should say, in the same time that it would take to make an espresso. And having seen thousands of books come off this machine in my store, it never gets old. It's absolutely exciting. It's like, I can imagine like working in a delivery room and just seeing how proud a parent is, like an author of their book when it comes out of the machine. I still think it's a really interesting go-between traditional and digital. And so I think the espresso book machine is still young and is still growing, and it's kind of where potentially ebooks were 10 years ago, where they were there and people were buying stuff, but it wasn't as big because large publishing hadn't embraced it, and it's not really until large publishing embraces something that
it takes off. But aren't they partnering with Kodak or something to try and do machines like the instant photo booths?
Yeah, I think they're doing all kinds of amazing things.
Or is it Ricoh, one of the photocopying companies?
Yeah, to try and expand that. I mean, the Xerox does distribution for them, but again, one of the joys is they partner with so many different players, and in a lot of independent bookstores that I'm aware of actually have those machines in their stores, which is really, really great because as an indie author with a self-published print-on-demand book, it's really, really hard to get your stuff on the shelf. But if your stuff is on a virtual shelf, you can send people to the local bookstore. And even if they don't have it on the shelf, if they have it in their digital file, which costs the bookseller nothing to host, you can walk in, order it, and an hour later you've got the book.
Yeah.
Which is amazing for authors, particularly. I mean, retail space is dear and precious. And it's really, really hard. Having been a bookseller, you can't keep a book on the shelf that doesn't pay for itself. It's not a library. You know what I mean? Like, this is a business. And even libraries, if people don't check the book out, well, they get rid of it because there's no demand for it. Same thing. If people don't want to buy a book, there's a million, how many hundreds of thousands of books come into print every year that could be on that space. So the Espresso answers that question that allows you to go to a local bookshop and get a hold of that, and get a hold of that book. I mean, I through Lightning Source, where I've made a couple of my titles available in print version, I can distribute. So they're available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Chapters, Indigo. But I can also tick off please send this to the Espresso Book Machine Network. And I would encourage any author who's doing print on demand through Lightning Source to check off the Espresso Book Machine Network, because that means any local bookshop that has an Espresso Book Machine will be able to print your book, so you can send local people to that bookstore. Say, well, I want to buy it, but I don't want to order it online. I want to pay cash or whatever. Go into your local bookstore and ask for it. It helps them. It helps you sell in new territories, which is really exciting.
No, it is fantastic. Right, we're out of time. So where can people find you online, Mark?
Online, I'm at markleslie.ca. Online at Kobo, you can find me through kobo.com/writinglife, or the blog where we've got interviews and features about writing and the craft of writing, the business of writing, kobowritinglife.com. So those are the ways, or I'm at Mark Leslie through Twitter.
Fantastic. Well, thanks ever so much for your time, Mark. That was great.
Thanks, Joanna.